Welcome to Speak, Lead, Connect, where we explore how your voice, your leadership, and your ability to connect shape the impact you create in your life and in the lives of others. I'm your host, Dr. Lorilet Monegro, and today's conversation sits at the intersection of language, culture, identity, and legacy. I'm joined by Yini Rodríguez Díaz, a writer, a cultural organizer, multidisciplinary artist, and an educational leader. She holds a bachelor's degree in multilingual journalism and Spanish, Summa Cum Laude, and a master's degree in Hispanic Literature from Lehman College. She currently serves in the School of Arts and Humanities at Lehman College and is deeply engaged in cultural and community work. Jeannie, welcome to Speak, Lead, Connect.
Thank you so much, Lorilet. I'm very happy to be here. I admire your work as a professional and respect you as a human being. So thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
My joy for me is truly an honor and a pleasure. Now, Jeannie, I liked us to basically begin at the root of your story because so much of who you have become is shaped by where we begin, right? Like you began your story in the Dominican Republic. How has your journey from the Dominican Republic to the United States shaped your voice and identity?
It's been a long journey, and in the last 25 years, I will say that it was when I kind of tapping into my consciousness in a sense of who I wanted to be. And the first thing that it started in my mind, it was education, because I dropped out of school when I was 16 because I got pregnant.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
Um, well, to go back a little to the beginning, I came here in 1985 when I was 12 years old, and I was in a community that unfortunately education was not the force, right? It was in a community with a lot of criminals and very dysfunctional families in that neighborhood. So soon I started hanging out, cutting classes, and before I knew, I was high school dropped out, pregnant. But in my mind, I always had the desire to study, right? And then all of this sudden, it felt like all those dreams that I have when I was growing up of become a professional or be someone, like it was just kind of fantasy in my mind. And and stage of my life, like I was like a party animal, meaning hanging out, going out. But at the end of the night, it was just that emptiness, right? And feeling depressed. And I used to think about, I'm gonna go to college. I have written all of these, reading all of these books about energy, about transformation, about visualizing the things that you want. I was like, I didn't have any education back then, but I used to read a lot, right? So in a sense was like, let me start putting these new thoughts in my mind, because I was very skeptical person, right? And also I didn't have the support system in my surroundings. So it was just like, you just dreaming, Ginny. You're not gonna go to school. You're not gonna be, a professional or something like that. But when I saw myself doing all the process to go to a community college to hostels, and at the age of 29, because I used to say, mi último año loco van a ser los 28, like my last crazy year is going to be my 28th, because in Dominican Republic, Kilometer 28, there was a mental hospital, and they say el manicomio de los locos.
Mhm.
So I party into hitting rock bottom. But then in fall of 2002, when I was 29, I found myself in a community college, and I was like, oh, wow, like I didn't believe it was going to be possible, but I did it. And since that time, then I just started like, um, working towards the things that I said I was going to do, but also was also a time that I was very anxious because instead of being present in the moment, I was like, okay, if I said to myself that I was going to go to school and here I am, so now I'm going to say that I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to write a book because there's so many interesting stories, not about myself, but about the community, the different communities that I have lived, and all those story of failure, successful, because we don't just tell the pretty story, right? So in that sense, it was like mind blowing, but I started living in the future, and it created a lot of anxiety. And when I was doing my master, I even had a eating disorder. I'm very honest and open, and as a writer, I think that if you're not able to open up, right, to show who you are, like in your scarf and your success and your failure, then it doesn't really connect with others.
That makes perfect sense because you're talking about being raw and authentic. And it's really critical because then you can show up and say that you are who you say you are, and also be able to share your experiences without having to make them all pretty. And it's like you say, you're sharing failures, your rock bottom, different moments that basically led you to become who you are today and to actually achieve these dreams of going for higher education. I mean, there's complexity, right? And holding more than one world within you. As I'm sure you have now figured, this whole complexity of how you're like, yes, there's this me from Dominican Republic and these dreams. And then there's me, this woman that went through these experiences and have basically learned and adapted to ways of a new culture in the US. Now, what did living between these two cultures teach you about belonging? Because at some point, you probably were also kind of like ambivalent and wondering and, having come from another culture. What did you learn about belonging?
It was in my personal case, right? Because everyone has a different experience, but in my personal case, it was really hard in the sense that I feel like I always wanted to go back and learning a new language, and like becoming familiar with a new culture. It was really hard, and then my mom was always working, and it was not even 2 years after I came here, I had a baby sister that I used to pick up at the babysitter when my mom was working. And I used to come like at the age of 14 and needed to pick up my sister at the babysitter and things like that. But I was surrounded in a community that first, I didn't want to speak English. Second, because I dropped out of high school, even there was a limitation in my vocabulary in Spanish and also in English, right? Because for those who come from their country and they're illiterate,
Hmm.
it's hard for them to learn a new language, right? But if you have a good foundation in your own language, then it's going to be easier to learn. So in my country, my mom used to move a lot. It was not really a strong education that I have. So when I come here, there is this book, My Left Foot, and the character he has, and it's based on a true story. He has cerebral palsy, right? And the family, the mom, the everyone around him didn't think that he was able to understand what they used to say, but the mom didn't give up, and she used to work with him until she realized that he was able to understand it, right? So they started giving me classes, and he used to depend on somebody else to like write for him. He used to tell them once he learned how to speak. And then one professor told him like, you don't need nobody else to write your story, because you know your story. You just don't have the words to express your emotion, how you feel, right? What is surrounding you. So he started reading a lot. So I feel like it helped me. I started reading and enriching my vocabulary. And also in Spanish, because when I went to Lehman for my bachelor's, I had a double major, as you mentioned, multilingual journalism and Spanish. And I say, if I want to learn English, I need to learn Spanish. And because, it's not only speaking, it's writing properly, all the different words that you can use to express your feelings and emotion. So for me, it was like India Maria. Ni de aquí ni de allá, not from here, not from there, right? And always with that feeling of wanting to go back. But then when I was over there, I didn't feel like I belonged there either. And it was that constant struggle. But once I started going to a community college, then to Lehman, I have been working at Lehman for the past 20 years. I have communities, right? And now I belong not only to the Bronx, Dominican Republic, right? It's donde yo nací, but like DR, and also New York, the Bronx.
Yes, and that is the beauty of, I always say, having an additive approach, right? Not this
Mm-hmm.
subtractive manner where you're now taking away instead of adding to your richness. So this is a good thing. Now, when I think back at everything that you're sharing, and I think about, your academic journey, it becomes not only impressive, but actually intentional, right? Because you're sharing how you figured, oh my goodness, I have to build my vocabulary. I have to improve. I have to build my communication, my own language skills in Spanish, right? Like you recognized that you needed to have that intention in shaping your knowledge base in the language. And I think sometimes people kind of like don't necessarily go there. They don't necessarily acknowledge the vital aspect of having your native language intact before trying to layer a new language. And I think this is a critical point that you expose in your own journey. Now, I'm thinking, what drew you actually to language and literature as a field of study?
Because of that precisely, meaning like I need to enrich my vocabulary. I need to learn about different periods of time in history, about different characters in different novels. I want to be able to have decent conversation with others, right? And in order for me to do that, I need to have a strong connection with the words, right? So Spanish is like my first choice is Spanish, because I think I dream in Spanish. English is mostly for work, and I like right now I'm doing this interview, and believe me, like it would be more comfortable for me if I'm speaking Spanish. But thankfully, I'm in a stage that I even recognize that, right? And I honor it, and I don't feel like less, right? Because perhaps I don't have the proper pronunciation. But one thing is like, it's never too late to learn, right? And when we went to Inspírame Latina, and I heard your presentation, I was like, wow. and this is not marketing for you, but I say I want Lorilet, right, to be my coach and help me take my pronunciation and how you place your tongue to play, with the words to have a lot of them sounds the same, but they're not the same, right? So how you differentiate from one to another. And I want to be confident enough to be in front of an audience and not feel like nervous because I'm not speaking properly. So if you can understand me, I'm gonna find a way, even with body gesture, right? Even if I need to write it down.
Right. No, I mean, I think you bring up a point that sometimes people want to make it seem as something else, but it's not. I think that working on our communication skills out of that space of wanting to do better, not out of a space of shame, but out of a space of like, I want to improve myself. I really want to work on myself. The same way we go to college, the same way we exercise, the same way we do all these other things that enhance our lives. Communication is one such area that is enhanced by the way we work the communication skills. And I feel like sometimes conversations nowadays have turned into strange conversations where a professional like you would want to work, let's say, on their voice, their diction, their pronunciation skills. And all of a sudden, people want to come in and save you from doing that and say, well, you got to love yourself the way you are. Working on yourself does not mean that you're not loving yourself, you know?
Exactly. On the contrary, I think because you love yourself, then you have to take care of those areas that you think you need improvement.
Right. You're just working to keep improving. It doesn't mean perfection of anything. There is no such thing. Everybody makes all kinds of mistakes. But I commend you for realizing the power, right? That's a powerful skill. And I think when people try to dismiss it, they do a disservice. They do a
Correct.
disservice because the truth of the matter is, whoever dominates the communication is dominating the attention. And I'm not just saying that just to say that. It's just plain and simple, the truth. The truth of the matter, whether it's in Spanish or in English, that's how it goes. And so I think while, we don't want to stigmatize anyone, the ability to say, no, I want to work on myself and own that without feeling shame, I think is the beauty of it. You get to
Correct.
choose.
Yes, yes.
You get to choose. You're definitely not less than, look at all the achievements that you've done. And that tells me, wow, what a committed person you are. You kind of said to yourself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to overcome all of these hurdles. I'm going to overcome teenage pregnancy. I'm going to overcome these poverty issues, having come from a country that I couldn't get my education the way I needed to. And those are all challenges that you overcame because you decided, because you knew you had the intellectual capacity and you could go for more. So I think that seeing education, what it has done is not only about the achievement, but it's about claiming space. Look where you are. You're in a school, in an institution that is of higher education.
That is so true. Like some of my friends, they'll be like, Jeannie, you're very lucky because sometimes, you get caught up in the clerical work, the routine becomes tedious, right? In the sense that, okay, I'm repeating, I don't say I'm more like creative mind production, but whatever I do at work, I do it with passion in a sense, right? Because there was a time that it was not like that. That was very unhappy. And then it was like, no, I have to be very grateful that I have this amazing job so close to my house. It's my alma mater. I'm contributing to the mission of Lehman College. And it's an amazing platform. And not only colleagues I have at Lehman, I have very dear friends that we have built a very strong connection throughout the years. And I advocate for education. Oh my God, so strongly because in my case and in other people's around my community that I know, right? some that has gone to attain their degree and committed to, because it's just not attaining a degree. I like this generation, I don't want to generalize, but there's gonna be like a collapse in less than a decade, because it's just not going to college to get the degree and the paper, right? And especially now with the help of AI, it's like having others to do the work for you. It's not for you not to use technology to enhance your work, to get feedback, but not to think for you, right? So that sense of critical thinking and logic and all those components in different areas of study that gives you that vast knowledge to understand not only yourself, but life itself in all the different areas.
Yeah, this is so critical. I mean, I think about how everything you're expressing is so important in terms of conversations about higher education and the meaning itself of us engaging in metacognition, right? All these processes of thinking about the thinking and philosophy and knowing all of the different background informations on the mental models that have created and shaped the points of view in society of how fundamentally we have created things, right? The theories behind the different things that exist and how people generated that through their own thinking and discovery. Um, but, you know, I think that in time, we all want to come back to human things because, after all, we are human, you
Correct.
know? So AI can have its part, but I definitely think the human species is always going to claim their humanity. Now, as I think about your academic formation, because basically you deliberately, intentionally shaped your educational learning path. But how has that shaped your leadership and voice? Because you started out with one thing, but now this has also created a leadership position, if you will, in the way that you are dealing with your surrounding community and in the voice that you exercise through it.
In the last 6 years since COVID, I will say that somehow I stopped um, organizing. I have done a couple of activities in the last 5 years. I even organized two exhibitions for two artists in Dominican Republic, and one of the exhibition was in Santo Domingo for Remy Ulloa, and the second exhibition, the artist, he came from Dominican Republic, and we did it here in el Comisionado de Cultura. But before COVID, I was very active producing, organizing events. And then once I got sick, I had COVID 3 times. And I think why I'm experiencing is the side effect of COVID, like involuntary movement. And therefore, I have problems to sleep. I have insomnia. I have the sleep apnea. So my commitment to the improvement of my community, right, through the arts, through promoting painting, dancing, and other forms of art, I start to take care of myself first, right? So now,
Mm.
and in the past, if you don't have a support system, you cannot compone a team of players to play baseball if it's only one player, right? You cannot do it all. You cannot be the only player running from first base to second
No,
to pitch. It's
no,
impossible,
it's
right?
impossible. A team requires multiple people.
So I started doing a lot of things, a lot of events, and precisely last night I was thinking like I'm gonna reach out to all the artists that I have organized event with, and they have participated in some of the events, because I wanted like a testimony, right, of the quality of work, the engagement. How was the event that they participated in through Yard? Because
Mhm.
it's not a few years me doing this. It's been a while that um, all the things that you have seen me doing that has to do with art and culture, those are initiative extracurricular activities that I take on. I'm a member of Community Board 7, which is my community, because if I look through my window, I can see Lehman College from my window. So I'm very close that I only walk to Lehman, and member of the alumni association. So, and I'm very local. I don't drive, so I'm very involved in my community, and my leadership has shown through all the work that I have done. But I could mention one thing that I did. Because, as human beings, we tend to complain. But what is that we do to change something that, in your opinion, you think is not correct or is not functioning? So during winter, especially, I was like, this street where I live, Villa Avenue, is very short. It's only 3 blocks from Bedford to Bank Cortlandt. And I used to be, this is so narrow. This street should be one way. And and I used to be so upset, right? Because you can barely pass through other cars without even touching them. So by going and attending to different conferences, because that's one thing, you can spend your whole life going to events that is empowering you, right? And you could walk with me, but you're not going to walk for me, right? So
Yes.
you get all of these insight, resources, skills, but if you don't do the work, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be every year attending those type of events, getting motivated, getting the momentum, right? Like when you're in church, I'm not religious, but, and it's anything against religion, I embrace of the religion, but it's like there's work to do. So in that sense, I'm like, what can I do instead of just being complaining and have an impact in my community? So I went to the community board. I was not even a member at that time. And it's like, what is that you need to do in order for a street become one way? Say, oh, there is a process. You need to write a petition and a waiver for those businesses around that street, saying that it doesn't interfere with their business. You need to gather 100. You need to get 100 signatures from resident of Villa Avenue, their signature, name, address, and telephone number. And I went with my niece and my nephew. And I was, can you please sign? This is to make Villa one way. And it was like, don't bother with that. We've been saying that this needs to be changed to one way, but no one does anything. And 3 years later, Lorilet Villa Avenue was a one-way street. When I went down and I saw the sign, do not enter one way, I was like, oh my God, that was something that I did, right? It was an initiative of mine. And involving my niece and nephew, it was even better as a reward for me. So I'm very involved in Lehman. I'm very involved in my community and other organizations, always supporting and helping others to grow. But now is the time also for myself. And I have been very low profile because a lot of the times we just show the pretty face and not talk about the struggle and mental illness and procrastination. There's some sort of problem, or not problem, struggle that we have to go through, right? So we need to talk about these things as well, because not everything is just bonito. So I remember when, I'll give you an example, when I was doing my master's, right? Because right after I have my associate from 2004, September 2004, 2002 to December 2004, I got my associate. From January 2005 to May 2007, I got my bachelor's. And then from September 2007 to 2010, I got my master's in Spanish literature using my tuition waiver from my job, right? I didn't have to pay. And while I was studying, I took student loans and I bought my apartment in DR, and it's already pay off the mortgage. So I was um I'm not gonna say lucky, but the word that you use, intentional, right? To be
You were
like,
intentional.
I
Yes.
need to do this, that from here to
Right.
get there.
You basically decided, you know what, I'm going to work, I'm going to put in all the extra effort that I can, I'm going to push through everything, and I'll use what I make from here and I'll use what I get from there. And you kind of little by little piled everything to be able to get what you needed to do done. And that's part of this whole concept of leadership, right? Like you led the way to having this change happen, because that's
Right.
what happened. You created change, and you also created possibility, because now all those people over there, they're like, oh, our belief is restored that we indeed can make a change happen,
Yeah,
right? Because they
correct,
all know they
correct.
signed a paper. So they all know they signed. So this is what a great leader does. They go ahead and they support a view, right? Like in this case, the view was, I want this to be a one-way street. And it wasn't just your sentiment. As you conferred with others, other wanted to do it too. And you went and you found a way, you made the connections, you gathered the signatures. But that power, right? Where your light just went and lit possibility in all the others. So I think that that's very important, because part of that is also trust. People somehow had to trust that you were going to take this information and do the right thing. Go show up at the community board and fight for that to happen. Whereas maybe other people might not have really followed through. So these are all qualities that go beyond, your education and the work with culture and all of that. But at the heart of it, I see this concept of community and institutions, right? Where you became that bridge. So you have learned a few things about building bridges between institutions and communities. What would you say has been, some of the things you've learned in that process, how institutions and communities, building that bridge? What are your thoughts on that?
It goes hand in hand, right? And you need to bring it outside of the campus also to have a greater impact. Because academia, don't get me wrong. I see I'm in administration. I'm a coordinator specialist now in the School of Arts and Humanity. But even with I thought it was only on one artist, like that ego thing, and also because it's just not all pretty, there are people that are biased, there are people that are not really that, but also it's the sense of community. Lehman College is a beautiful platform, not only amazing professors and really good programs, but also it's like your tribe, your community, especially like in my case. And not only I studied there, because I always urge people like to go back, to stay connected with a professor that was meaningful to you, intentional, to a support staff, someone in the registrar's office or the financial, like go back. What is the type of relation that you wanted to have with your alma mater? So for me, community is really important. And one thing that I would like to highlight when you mentioned trust, it's like I was doing all of that, even my education, but at that time, I recognized I didn't have trust in myself, right? So it's like when you're growing up and when you think that you miss a lot of things, and then you just kind of want to catch up and prove not only others, but mostly yourself. You want to prove that you're capable, that you're able. So it came to a point like I was just doing too much to prove that I was intelligent enough, that I was capable. But inside of me, I didn't have that confidence, the trust. And I'm gonna mention this. When I graduated with my bachelor's and with my associate, my GPA was 3.78. My bachelor was 3.76 and my master was 3.9. But because I didn't know about scholarships, I didn't know about grants, I was just studying because I wanted to have a degree, but not only degree, I wanted to um, grasp the words so I can express and write my story. Um, and I used to tell one professor, Professor, how did how did I do on the test? Did I pass? And one time she said, Jeannie, you are very smart, tú eres muy inteligente. I would recommend for you to go to see this doctor that me and my daughter, we've been with him for a while. And I did. It was a psychiatrist. And after listening to my story, he's like, you know what? You have done so much, but you don't look back to see of the things that you have achieved. You're just focusing on the things that you would like
Mhm.
to get done. So, and be like, don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself with your boss who has two PhD and their parents are very educated. You know, you're the first one in your generation and things like that. So he helped me. And then I started like deepening in my spirituality, meditation and things like that. And I was like, after I even went through a eating disorder because I used to binge thinking like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pass the exam. I'm not going to be able to do my research paper correctly. And I used to think about it and wait until the last minute and eat a lot, then to drink a lot of liquid and then purge. And then and through that roller coaster ride, and I used to cry, then I used to sit down after to write my paper, and I used to get a minus, and it's like, that's because they know me, they like me, right? And not giving the credit to myself due to the imposter syndrome. But now it's that I'm like reclaiming who I am, right? And knowing the uh, dedicated, mindful person, responsible, intelligent. So now, like you mentioned, when you give the conference for Inspirame Latina, it's like, how do you talk to yourself? You know, do you find yourself talking to yourself in a way that is demeaning and you hurting yourself? So now I treat Jeannie with love and I even kiss myself. I hug
Of
myself
course.
and feels great. I don't need nobody else to give me love. That's beautiful when somebody else gives you love, right?
Of
But
course.
you can give plenty of love to yourself.
Yes. And I think that the beauty in that kind of concept, where is that uh, wholesomeness of accepting who you are with your faults and your greatness is very different than any other kind of love because that kind of love glows. It's like what makes you glow when you go into places, you glow because your brilliance shines from within and nothing obstructing it. You're not creating these falsehoods around you and you're able to accept who you are from your brokenness from your whole life as opposed to like, oh, I'm only going to have this little thing and the other shame I'm going to hide and I'm not going to. No, you kind of, no, that happened, I move on and here's what's next. And you don't get to limit who you are to all those shameful moments. But instead, you can say, you know what? I've built so much, not out of being a show off, of course not, but of acknowledging the whole truth, not just the selective piece, not just the bad things, because we tend to do that a lot. You know,
Yes.
we really do weird stuff as human beings, okay?
Yeah, we are
Mm,
very condescending with ourselves, you know. We don't really give the credit. So I feel like I'm a new momentum in my life, more to myself, because I
you gotta
already
harness.
know, I already have a community, right? And it's not like, okay, I'm glad for the collaboration, contribution that I have done, but now is the time to really go back to, or not going back, but also to continue what I started, right?
Of course, and to
And
nurture yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now it's being more organized. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You cannot be a producer of an event that you bring in the idea from inception to completion, but you also put in your time and also you funding the event.
No.
It doesn't work like that. So
Mm.
because I was very hard head. I say, if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it regardless, right? So with George Foundation, which is incorporated in Dominican Republic, I remember 1 year, Lorilet, I spent $14,000, even producing a play, having a secretary, and I have never received funding from YAR. But also, that was also beginning of COVID, and I got sick, and I didn't have the support system, because usually the grass is greener on the other side. So although people in in our circle might know your value, but not really there to help, right? Because it's and that's a human condition, right?
Mhm.
Like we worship and we become fan of even artists that we don't know, but we like them, right? And because we think
Mhm.
their life is so extraordinary. But then an
Mhm.
artist in your community, you think it's just like someone who wants to become an audience, not even really giving that recognition that is someone that con emociones sensibles, right?
Mhm. And that it's already doing the work.
Yeah.
The
Mm-hmm.
doing the work piece. So I think that's a good point, so that we can start appreciating what's right in front of us and having value for what's unfolding right now, as opposed to just having these idealized dreams, and not harnessing the power of the
Mm-hmm.
artist right there in front of us in our community, that is giving their all, and it's also looking for a way forward. What a better way to support that person that's starting out than to support someone who already made it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm-hmm.
think it also comes with having that insight, the depth and appreciation for process of becoming, whether that is an artist or becoming a entrepreneur or owner of a company or your own creator. And that is something that, may require more exposure,
Mm-hmm.
in our community. Now, I know that one of the things that you also do is that you write. So I'm thinking here in terms of basically writing an expression as a concept in the way you work. And let's just kind of get a little bit into it. I feel like it's important to connect the ideas that we've been talking about. What calls you basically to write, and like what truths do you feel responsible for protecting? Because I'm sure there are things that kind of like, I got to write about this. And then there are things that, there's some things that are truths that I got to be responsible and protect, because I'm sure there are things you're like, no, I don't want to write about that, you know?
You're right, because there has been moment that it's just so much that a person might be going through in their living environment, emotionally, mentally, right? So for me, writing is very special. It's a connection, right? To, like, I feel like being exposed, kind of naked, to show all your flaws of your, right. And my writing was just more like that, and digging into my brain. Um, And I used to watch with my ex a lot of movies, and he was when he was in law school, he was a journalist for the Daily News, and he used to write about sports. So he used to watch a lot of movies about narcos, Dominican, and he's a criminal lawyer. So we used to watch movie, and it used to amaze me how he kind of go inside the mind of director of photography, the different scene, the lines that they, and I was like, he loved all of this movie, but I have lived in community and neighborhoods like that, like the real story, right? Like I would like to write of the story and things that had happened in the different communities that I live, but because the lack of the language and having that's when it started really also resonating. Like I want to go back to school because I want to be able to write, and writing is a way also of connecting, escaping, also documenting archive, is very important. I don't have any story. I think storytelling is very important, and I don't have any writing or story from family and my ascendant, right? De mi abuela, my great grandmother, any family in my family tree. So it's like, what is the legacy? How do I live? But how do I document uh, the things that I have lived, and my desires, my fears, and all of that. So there was a time that I used to stop writing because you become like a gossip, like you gossiping, right? My mom gets very upset because she's like, you want to write about everything. Tú eres como una chimosa, right? And it's like you assert reality, right? And whatever mm, you take on, because the way you see reality, it's different from the way I see reality, right? And depending
Mhm.
on where your brain is focusing, that's what you're going to pay attention to. So
Mhm.
for me, writing is a way of preserving myself and see also the achievement, not only me, but also the people around me in my community. And Esmeralda Santiago, I remember one time, she's the author, very well known, when I was Puerto
Mhm.
Rican. She mentioned
Yes.
that when she was writing the book, and she wrote about the fact that her grandmother was an alcoholic person, and people like, oh, the family, they're going to go against you, they're not going to talk to you. Sorry. So someone told her, like, don't worry, they're gonna be upset, but if you become well known, they're gonna forget about the fact that you expose all of these family secrets that like they hold on to tie. So writing it's powerful, but it's documenting our story, which are very important for us to tell.
Yes. Often I say that writing is really an act of witness, because you are writing down your perception of what that
Mm-hmm.
experience and reality was. And so it is an act of witness. And I think that people forget that. And when people are very critical, there might be more beneficial to ask what was the state of mind that led this writer to perceive what they saw this way, right? Because our perception is also informed by what we have lived and what we have experienced and what meaning making we've been doing through those
Mm-hmm.
experiences. But many people, may not necessarily read a piece and critique it in that way. That I think comes with the sophistication of being exposed to different types of written works, of going in there with different kinds of content. And that's not always possible if a person is not a reader. And they might be like, what I have been noticing is more abundant now. It's like people read through surface stuff, but they're not necessarily getting in there into the critical thinking pieces of all the mental models that are behind the thinking, like I said
All
before,
right.
and the
Yes.
theories and all that. So this is why it's so powerful when someone like you has made education intentional. Now, what do you hope like your readers feel when they encounter your work? I mean, I've had the pleasure of reading some of your work, not all of it, but I'm just wondering, because as you're writing, you also know that you have readers, an audience. So what do you hope that they feel like when they encounter your work?
It's hard to tell because like when you write and you're not in a sense depending, right? Thinking about the audience, but like my readers is like despite the hardships, like to believe in yourself, to tell your story. You doesn't have to come from an educated background, or you don't need to be um, the best of the writer, right? It's just to write what is inside you, how you can let everything that you have inside you, right, come back to your writing. Because before I used to write a lot and just post it right away. So now I let it sit, right? It's just
Mm.
like, because emotional intelligence, right, is very important. So you might be angry at your boss or to your partner, and then you start writing to purge, but it's not going to be only pretty things, right? So it's fine that you do it because you just letting out, right? But you leave it outside, you go back to it with different eyes, and you'll be like, you know what? How can I analyze this from another perspective? You're like a third
Mm.
person, and then you be like, okay, then you made uh intentional choices, and because every action has a consequence. So yes, through writing you become self-aware of your community, your surrounding, right? Because you always looking. It's just like a movie that you seen things, but also you see it inside yourself. So all the things that you put into your mind, you're going to be able to do it, but you need to know who you are and live with intention and have a purpose in life.
Yes, that makes perfect sense to me. The fact that you said that. I'm thinking also in terms of not just your writing, but you mentioned your work with the art and how art, right? It's like it's this form of expression. So, like your life reflects a multidimensional expression because it's not just the writing; it's also the art, not for
Mhm.
others only, but also you yourself. I want to make sure people realize that you also create art, not that you only support artists, because I don't know if that was really clear in the sense that you yourself are a creative person that way. Now, I'm thinking, how have the arts help you understand yourself more fully? How you mentioned that you would just write to purge. Well, I'm just wondering, have you used art as a way to basically express yourself more fully? That kind of purging, but in a different way, with where it becomes very creative and you can actually have it there, like expressed and become a piece of art that other people could actually admire, even if you didn't say what it was.
It's true.
you know?
Like it's different writing. It's different because when I write it's like intentional. Like I want to write about this situation that I encounter, right? And
Right,
I was probably maybe stuck on the D train, but what happened while I was waiting for the train to move to the other
right.
station, right? And then I'm looking around and I'm seeing people's expression and I'm seeing what people's wearing, right? If I want to write a story. So I'm very
Mm-hmm,
intentional. With painting, it's different. With painting, it's my little girl, right?
mm,
The La Niña inside of me, the little girl inside me. So I have no pretension. When I'm painting, I just take my brush, I just start mixing colors because I don't really know how to draw. but
Mhm.
things start forming. And then it's like I'm a three-dimension painting because I see things, right? And then that I start highlighting. But when I finish, it's very interesting because depending of my mood or what am I going through, it shows in the colors, right?
Mm.
So, like for example, I have various notebooks that I bought for 2026, from a small one to a medium one to a bigger one to a huge
Mhm.
one. Because since 2020, I started painting with the pandemic. And since then, I paint very often. So, really quick, I'll show you. So, every day I could something, I need to sit down and like really say,
Oh, I
with
love the colors. Gorgeous. Wow. Very interesting.
and so and let me show you this last one. This is another one, right? So now I have this like, oh, last night when I painted that, what I was feeling. Did I had an argument with my mom? Did I feel bad about something? Was I thinking too much about anything that it's not pleasant, right, to your
Mhm.
emotions?
Mhm.
As the opposite, if I'm feeling like really nice, really connect, and it shows. So this one is two different night. Look how dark this is, it, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then after an hour, I started painting again, but I was feeling better, and I knew I was feeling better. And I say, let me
Mhm.
paint again, and I painted, and it is this.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that's like another outlet, like another lover
Mhm.
painting. And I'm going to organize my first individual exhibition. I have participated in collective exhibitions, but now is the intention to do one for myself with a one woman show. Like I write story, but then I want to be able to have the confidence to be in front of a microphone and being like bilingual, telling story of different topics that has, kind of shape who you are, right? And stigma and perception from the past that you just need to detach from those things. But it's like, but there is a story. I want to write about this, and I want to be able to do a one woman show with my exhibition, because at the end of the day, it's why I do the things that I do, right? Not only because the art for the human, it's transformative, right? So if you want to age graciously, learn different things: crochet, painting, making earrings, writing, walking around. Not only novellas, right? Like my mom, for example, when it's Saturday and Sunday, my mom very unhappy because there is no novellas that day.
Mhm.
Right. So
Mhm.
I could be como genie in a bottle, and I feel like now with a frugal spending, because I have the intention to develop my project in Dominican Republic and work. I used to say, oh, I'm gonna take my pension at 57. I say, no, wait a minute. You used to say things about, oh, because I say something, I got to do this. No, you could be flexible. And if things doesn't add up, the number, then you need to consider, but you need to be in a place that you feel safe. So
Mhm.
when I write, when I'm reading, when I'm painting, it's that beautiful connection with my soul. And now I know, because now I have the confidence to believe in myself. And it's not like I have my ups and downs, because it doesn't matter how illuminated you are. Come on, you're not always eh, up
On a
there, right?
high.
In a
No.
high, no.
Yes.
So we need to recognize that and own that. And I'm happy, and I feel in a safe place. And whatever life throws at me, it's like, okay, let's go with the flow, and not make expectation for the future, but being the best version of myself today.
I mean, everything you're saying is really like reflective of this wholeness, right? Like becoming whole through this whole process of working and remaking and doing and writing and expressing and drawing and finding the different channels to overcome these blockages, right? That might be emotional, energetic, or even of thinking processes and just evolving with the knowing. And I think that that's really critical for a person who wants to expand their thinking, but also to become um, live in authenticity, right? This idea of
Mhm.
being fully themselves expressed. And as a woman, I can tell you that many women often feel like this pressure to just simplify themselves or to shrink themselves or to become less, do less, not express,
Mhm.
not go there, right? Not use the words, not use the art, not be the ones who say this is what I feel, this is what it's been, not put that name to the thing. And
Mhm.
I think again, it's not only being wholesome, not only is it leadership, but it's also an act of courage. Because where everybody else is like, shh, 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 you're like, no, that's not how I feel. I feel like this. This is how I feel. Feel lost. I feel in the dark. No, I don't feel happy. I feel upset. Right. And where you're giving permission for others to say, yeah, this is how you're feeling. Okay. How about we kind of go there and realize that we have days we feel horrible.
Sure,
Like
of
we
course.
are not always feeling amazing, like you said. And I think that the beauty in you using the written word and using art to express that, like, wow, I think it's really beautiful. If I may say the word beautiful, but that's how I see it.
Thank
And you
you.
talking about this one woman show, right? Which I don't know. I have a feeling it's going to be a mosaic of all of us because you may be thinking in your perception it's about you, and you might discover it's about all of us
Yeah, and
because
I'm like I do acting. So last year I participated in a community play, and it was just amazing. And the bonding that we created among the actors that participated in the workshop, and we did one presentation at the Whitney Museum. It was
oh,
really
nice,
amazing. Yeah.
nice,
It was really
nice.
amazing. One project that I would love to mention is I'm a co-founder of Felige. Felige is la fiesta de escritores de literatura infantil y juvenil en español. So Felige stands for Fiesta de Escritores, Literatura Infantil y Juvenil, and it's in Spanish. And it's going to be the third year that we're celebrating this community event to promote children and youth literature and also independent editorial and writers. And this amazing event is for children and their family in the community. I will pass on the information to you.
Yeah, please, that would be awesome. Do you happen to know off the top of your head, like
It's
when it will
on
be?
Friday, June 12th. I'm sorry, I don't have a
Oh,
flyer
it's
with
okay.
me
It's
right
okay.
now.
No, it's just
Um,
I was just wondering.
yeah, the 12th and 13th of June.
Okay, so it's
Um,
soon. Hmm?
yeah, and soon. So now I got a lot of work to do. It's really like,
Yeah. I
but
mean, just even that, like you're tackling also the young children so that they also start finding this love and like for literature and reading and writing at an early age. And I think that that's like really being an ambassador for the art, literature, expression. It's like, wow, even your job on a regular basis, it makes you a conduit for this.
yeah, somehow, yes.
Like you may at times, like anything, because, one thing is doing the creative piece and one thing is the administrative piece, but having the ability to inform both, because you, on one hand, do the creative aspects even on your own, and on the other hand, understand the administrative, is really being very well positioned to know the industry, if you will, if I'm going to call it an industry, really in depth. Like, that's a real privilege. You're living in a space of quite a unique intersection.
Yes, and social capital is very important. You know, it's not about people think often that is about, of course, having money. It's important, and security, right? As you age,
Hmm.
it's important. But when you have a community of people that hold each other, right? It's like we're gonna age together, because I see myself like, oh my God, I see myself in that 65 and spending time with Lorilet, Julissa, and the group, Notice, for example, right? And
Yeah, of course.
it's just like, wow, that we can come together, and it doesn't
We
matter.
can, absolutely.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. And now I understood that my journey, my process is in my own pace, right?
Yes.
And God's time is different for everyone.
Yes.
And I'm so happy I embrace like my background, all the things that I have gone through, all the people that I know for good and bad. You know, it's just like so grateful, like from my heart. Like that's how I feel like right now in Night Minute. Even with the things that I dislike, I make it into positive things, right? Like there's something, even to write about it, you know, and to be able to analyze it from another perspective. But it's like I'm on the right path, and just go with my instinct that connect with myself, that I'm doing it on the time that is for me.
Yes, and no better way than to do that, knowing and being assured that everything you've lived has prepared you for the moment of recognition. And that moment of recognition is right around the corner when we are certain that everything we've done has prepared us for sure, right? Because many people can learn of theories, but few people are learning through the doing. And what I admire about you the most is that you've been able to withstand process and processes to a degree that few people are willing to, but also with a sense of transparency, while other might think that that's a sign of weakness or brokenness. Actually, when you look at kintsugi as a tenet for expressing how these fractures that we've lived through create a very unique typography of the self, then we can, almost like an excavation, extract from our lives the very best and offer that to the world, because now we've known ourselves and we've embraced our brokenness and healed those brokenness,
Hmm.
and understand that others have gone through different processes themselves, even if they're not willing to talk about that. Um, but the brave souls that do often create a roadmap for many who otherwise would be lost. So that's being a light in the world. That's being a light. And I'm just so honored. I think you're deeply legacy driven. Your work is incredible. You are very well respected and regarded in the arts and humanities and cultural expression. And I think that this is really important. If anything, just from my own point of view, it's a legacy you've built. But my question, and this will be my last question, right? Because I want to bring it back
Sure.
to the heart of how we basically introduced this podcast, is to ask you, what do you most hope your life communicates about voice, leadership, and connection to the world? To all those young people that might be listening, what would you say to them?
Be true to yourself when others are not looking, you know? and be consistent and be and have that integrity and the vision to really nurturing, polishing your life for your descendant, for yourself, for your community, and as a legacy. For me, that is very important.
Jeannie, I want to thank you for your presence, your work, and your commitment to culture and community. To everyone listening, what can I say? What are you preserving through the way you live? That's my question for you. Until next time, your voice is your power, your leadership is your legacy, and your connection is your bridge to transformation. So go out there and communicate your power. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Gracias.